Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us on this sunny but still chilly day in the South Bend area. I'm Sean Stiers. Jesse Stiers is here. It is the day after the college basketball season, Jesse, is officially over after the national championship game last night. Did you stay up? Did you watch the whole game last night?
Can I make a what's the word? A confession here?
Sure. You didn't watch any of it?
1 minute of the national championship.
Really? You were that down on UConn, Michigan? Is that it, or were you just like, what was? Just weren't excited about it, huh?
This kind of leads me into a question that's been on my mind recently.
Okay.
Maybe this is a Friday Fire question, but kind of want to bring it up now because it ties into, I guess, what I'm thinking here. What is more relevant, the national championship or the first round of the NCAA tournament?
I mean, there's more excitement, more buzz, with the first round. Those first 2 days, the first two full days, Thursday and Friday of the NCAA tournament, games start at around noon Eastern time, and obviously just roll on throughout the day. Those are the most exciting 2 days, the first 2 days of the tournament. And there's no doubt that unless there's a team you're following, it gets a little bit less exciting as with each passing round. And so if you're not into the teams that are in the Final Four and in the national championship game, I can see why you'd be a little blasé about it. Personally, I probably watched more of this particular men's Final Four than the last few. I guess I was kind of interested in the storylines, and I felt like last night would be a good game. It was a pretty good game. It was a bit of a slugfest. UConn made it a little bit of a slog, but ultimately Michigan held on and won. And like, if you're a Notre Dame fan, I don't know if you can stomach seeing Michigan win. Personally, I will make a confession. I was more pulling for Michigan because I didn't want to see UConn win a third championship in 4 years.
I think that's ultimately where I was at. I'm not in on Dan Hurley and UConn. And they've already had, they went the back-to-back not too long ago. I don't care for anything about Michigan. All the teams that I wanted to make it, like Arizona, Arkansas, St. John's, even Duke, I didn't mind watching the Boozer brothers. They were all gone. So I was like, I was watching Major League Baseball games randomly rather than watching the national championship. That's just how uninterested I was. And I saw something that like Michigan's the first team ever to, like they didn't shoot very well and they had turnovers and all this. Like they're like the first team to do X, Y, and Z and still win the game basically. So I couldn't tell if that meant it was a sloppy game, still a good game. But I'll have to defer to you because again, I don't know. There were multiple times to
UConn with their defense just, they made it the kind of game that it needed to be for them to stay in it. That was ultimately it, because like Michigan had size all over the place, and I felt like athleticism all over the place as well. But they were just the better team. But UConn made it ugly enough that they could stay in it. That's kind of how they win some games. With what they've got with this roster, that's how they got to where they did. So
I will say though, I ended up placing a wager on the national championship. Everyone's asking me, "You going to place a wager? You're going to place a wager?" I didn't think I was going to, and then I came into some really helpful information right before the tip of the basketball game, and it said something like, anytime a team has been favored by 6 or more points, they've always won the national championship. So I was like, okay, Michigan money line seems like a good thing. And then another thing was Dan Hurley has covered like 14-1 against the spread or something.
Yeah,
so I was like,
Sweet 16. Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go UConn to cover 6.5, but Michigan still to win. So it was like that band of, and that's what happened. Of course, UConn loses by 6 points right on the dot of 6.5.
We talked about that last night, a 6.5 point spread, and of course, Vince and Bobby, I think, thought that it should have been a bigger spread. I thought that was the perfect number, actually.
it turned out to be, and I think Vegas ultimately was super happy too because Michigan wins and the spread gets covered. So,
Yeah.
or UConn covers the spread. So that was the only thing I did. It was like $25 to win 100. So I was like, oh, I can't complain. I won $100 last night.
First championship for Michigan since 1989. I actually remember where I was when I watched that game. I was in Augsburg, Germany. They beat Seton Hall, PJ Carlesimo, and an Australian named Andrew Gaze early in the season. Like, Seton Hall had never really been anything. I picked Seton Hall early in the season to win the national championship that year. They went all the way, finished runner-up to Michigan. That Michigan team, Steve Fisher, Rob Pelinka, a reserve on that 1989 national championship Michigan team. Only 10 schools have won a title in both football and men's basketball. Can you name any of them? Michigan is obviously one. This is ever. A couple of them should be easy.
Florida,
yes. Michigan and Florida, the two most recent to do it, in both anyway. They both
Michigan
done it
State?
in this century. Michigan State has done it. They, of course, were the last Big Ten team before last night to win a championship 26 years ago. Think Big Ten.
Maybe IU for sure.
Indiana, yes, they've won multiple basketball championships, just won their football championship. Ohio State, Stanford, Syracuse, Cal, and UCLA, and Maryland actually are the others. And obviously you have to go back a ways, like since Ohio State has won a basketball national championship, or Stanford, Syracuse, Cal, UCLA have won anything. Maryland's basketball championship came in 2003. So that was it, 2 or 3. It has been a while, I guess, is my point. But yeah, the Big Ten though, cleaning up right now. They won both the men's and women's championships this year, and they've won the last 3 football championships. So yeah, that's the Big Ten is on a roll. You're going to hear a lot about the Big Ten, as if you already haven't. So Craig wants to know any news on transfers for the basketball team. You're going to have to be more specific than that. We did a whole show yesterday. Tom Noyd joined us from the South Bend Tribune to talk a lot of Notre Dame men's basketball. Like if you're asking where guys are, today was the first day that the portal was actually opening. You've got 6 Notre Dame men's basketball players in the transfer portal. So nothing new after yesterday. Basically, like the big dogs, Cole Serta, Marcus Burton, Jalen Harrelson, they're all in the transfer portal. Sir Muhammad and a couple others as well. In terms of like where anyone's gone, no one has announced anything, in terms of where they're going as of today. But so that's kind of where it stands right now. Got an interview coming up in a little bit with Notre Dame men's lacrosse head coach Kevin Corrigan. They just beat the number 1 team in the nation, Richmond, in their latest game, and now they've got the number 1 team in the nation at home this Saturday. Notre Dame is ranked number 2 in the current ranking, so it'll be 1 versus 2 at Arlada Stadium, Notre Dame, North Carolina, this Saturday at 5 o'clock. We are going to talk a little Notre Dame football because that's what we do on this here show. What we've learned and what we haven't learned about Notre Dame football so far this spring. We are a little bit past the halfway point of spring. Is there, let me ask you this before we get into what we have learned. Is there anything that you're still maybe most waiting to get an answer on this spring that we haven't got an answer on so far?
I think that the biggest thing that I'm waiting for is ultimately how the running back room is going to shake out. And I don't think we're going to know that just because of the various injuries and the level of severity for different injuries. I know Aeneas Williams is still out there. Some other guys are banged up. I guess I just want to see, what the transition looks like going from Jeremiah Love to Darian Price, 2 potential first-round running backs to, a new running back coach in Jawan Sider. And I know he was here last year, but we've discussed this before. It's it's pretty easy to put on the cruise control when you have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price.
Mm-hmm.
The actual coaching is going to begin now, where you have to kind of fill those holes on a really talented, Notre Dame offense. So I just want to see, is this are we leaning more towards a 2-man room, 3-man room, what that rotation looks like? Is Aeneas Williams mainly, a guy that they want to utilize splitting out of the backfield? Or is he going to be more of a pure running back? So I just want to see ultimately what the running back looks like with Aeneas Williams, Nolan James, Kedron Young. There's just so many question marks I still feel like surrounding the running back room.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of like you alluded to, unfortunately, we're not going to get answers to most of those or really any of those until the fall, just because of the limited numbers. Aeneas Williams is out there, very limited. Kedron Young not really doing anything. Nolan James, you've got him out there, and Osborne, he's got the cast on this spring. We're not going to see him. Casey says he's anxious to see Kedron Young out there. I mean, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like, it feels like if Jawan Sider is going to go with a more, not even platoon, but, just even closer to Dylan McCullough's philosophy, where maybe you don't have that number one horse like a Jeremiah Love out there, and like a 1A or like a 1B like Jadarian Price. Maybe you have more situational backs. Like, does Kedron Young become the short yardage back? Does he become the goal line back? Whereas maybe Aeneas Williams and Nolan James, his name was escaping me there for a second. Like, are they the two main guys, but maybe Kedron Young has a role, and maybe Osborne has a role, or Walton has a role? It's going to be interesting to see if they split that up anymore, or if he kind of continues to lean into what has been his, kind of go-to move, and that's just have the two main workhorses, and you don't have necessarily a whole lot after that. So, but again, I don't think we're going to really start to get those answers until the spring. And it's kind of the same with the linebackers. Like, if you look at where the linebacker group is, because of the lack of numbers, because, like, again, you've got Drake Bowen out there, limited. He's mostly been in shorts and a jersey and kind of doing some stuff, just moving around a little bit and helping out from the sidelines, but we're not seeing a ton from him. I don't know that there's necessarily any questions to answer specifically at the linebacker group, but there's, like, again, the numbers are just so limited that we weren't going to get very much out of that, it feels like. Michael says, we learned that this is the most talented roster since the late 80s or early 90s. I would probably agree with that, because we have definitely, in what windows we've been able to get out there and see things, we've definitely seen some talent on display, and that's good. Both offensive line, defensive line, wide receivers, the quarterback position, on down the line, the secondary, some of the plays that we see those guys out there making. Your biggest question answered so far?
Yeah, I think my biggest question answered so far is what the best group of five looks like on the offensive line right now. I know that there's still, some lingering injuries with Jagasol and is it
Ashton Craig.
Yeah, Ashton Craig, because that's who Auding is kind
Right.
of in for right now. So, with Ashton Craig being out and Jagasol being out, with those injuries, if the season had to start today, I've learned who the best five are and where those guys would probably end up on the offensive line as well. What group that they see as the best five, and how they would settle in position-wise amongst the offensive line, with, of course, Will Black at left tackle, Anthony Knapp moving from left tackle to left guard, Joe Otting at center, Sullivan Absher at right guard, and Gerby Lambert at right tackle. So, that was a big question mark of what was going to be, were they actually going to make that move, and were we going to see Knapp at the guard position? And we have seen that, and we have learned that Will Black is a dude and should be ready to play left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like that was probably the number one Would you call that the number one question going into spring? Was that actually going to happen? The Knapp move to guard and Will Black at tackle? I think it might be. And that's what we've seen. And Marcus Freeman was pretty emphatic about Will Black when Vince and I played the cut that he had about Will Black last week. And Vince talked about, and I agreed with him, like when Marcus Freeman started talking about it, about Will Black, you could literally hear the smile on his face the way he was talking about him. And I'm trying to see if I've still got that cut right now. I'll play it for you here real quick if I can find it. I thought I had it there for a second. Now I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Here it is. I will play it for you. See if you concur. Marcus Freeman talking about Will Black last week. Well, there it is. And here we go.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. He's a big body, and Will had a lot of hype coming into this program, and he got here in June. And like any freshman, right, had a bumpy road that first year. And listen, his career will be bumpy, but it's extremely high as you look at his ceiling. And he's doing a really good job at the left tackle position, going against really good players, right? He's going to improve because he has to block Bryce Young and Boubacar Traore and some of those really good players every single day. That's going to make him be the best version of himself or he'll get embarrassed. And I've been really pleased with the job he's done in the first 6 practices.
Could you hear that? Could you hear the smile on Marcus Freeman's face when he was talking about that size that Will Black has?
You could, and he just talks like someone that's like a proud father that's finally seen their son out there and kind of light up the world. And like there's a point where you might have someone who's super talented but might not be quite ready yet, and you're just like, just wait, I promise you, this is what he'll do. And then finally they let him out, they let him loose, and I think people are starting to finally realize what everyone else, especially Marcus Freeman and the coaching staff, was super excited about.
Yeah, and it's something that fans have kind of been, like the Knapp specifically, like upgrading at left tackle. And when you look at the size that Black has at 6'7" and 315 pounds, he is a mountain out there now. And I think that this could end up. It's kind of crazy thinking about it, because when you look at what the line is potentially going to be, you have some experience, obviously, on that line. But at the same time, like Knapp, all of his experience is at left tackle. So now he potentially moves to left guard, and you've got Absher and Lambert out there. So you've got guys in different places. So like this is, with the exception of Ashton Craig, assuming he's back and ready to go once the season starts, which it's perfectly reasonable to think that that's going to happen at this point. But this would be a completely revamped offensive line, but also arguably more talented than they've had in the last few years. So that's,
I think that's the most exciting or promising thing. If you're Notre Dame is, everyone kind of gives Joe Rudolph a hard time, but I think that he's really done a good job of, piecing together what he's had these last couple of seasons with injuries and so forth. So I do agree that the offensive lines have been really strong units, definitely not something that has been perceived as a weakness on this team. And I don't even think we've seen the most talented, best group yet, under Den Brock and Joe Rudolph. And I think that's something super exciting for the fans this season. And it's like, what, CJ Carr took 1 sack last year or something, and it's like, and this line could be better than that. I think that shows you just how talented and deep Notre Dame is.
I wanted to talk about the wide receivers when we talk about what we've learned so far this spring from Notre Dame, because there are a couple of different things. So I'm going to play another cut for Marcus Freeman first. And again, we played this last week. This is the question that I asked him about Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams' progress, like where they are, what kind of improvements they've made. But he didn't talk a lot about those two guys specifically. Here is the response to that, and listen to the names he mentions.
Yeah, I think, shout out to Coach Brown and the job he's done in recruiting and developing. And he's done an excellent job of attracting the right guys to this program and really creating a great relationship with them and getting them to trust them. And now they're practicing and playing at a high level. It's good to see Micah back out there, after an injury-plagued 25 season, and he's making some plays and he's competitive. I mean, he would make a lot of those plays last year. Cam's getting better. Logan Saldalte's getting better. And you're seeing, Mylan Graham out there and doing some really, really, really good things. JG is working back into play. He had a hamstring early in spring ball, but he's working back into play. And the young guys, right, for some of those guys that just got here in January, I mean, I remember, at the end of practice, Devin Fitzgerald. They started screaming Larry, that's why I said it. But Devin made a heck of a catch right there on the sideline. And, Bettis and Burris, they're all getting better, and they're all making plays when opportunities come into them in practice. And they all got room for improvement like we all do. So, but really pleased with the recruiting and development of that room.
Okay, so really pleased with the recruiting and development. And obviously, he spent a lot of time talking about a lot of young guys and one of the transfers from Ohio State, Mylan Graham. So, the names he mentioned: Logan Saldate, Mylan Graham, Jaden Greathouse, Devin Fitzgerald, Jerome Bettis Jr., and Elijah Burris. And that's 6 guys right there, without mentioning Jordan Faison. And so they've gone with a primary rotation of about 6 guys the last few years. So do you think the primary rotation that they have comes from that group of guys there that he just mentioned? You're on mute.
I had a massive cough during the Marcus Freeman soundbite, so I had to cover myself up. I think that Marcus Freeman did hint at a little bit of kind of what that group looks like, and I think it would be Micah, Elijah, Faison, Greathouse, Mylan. And then really that last spot comes down, in my opinion, like Logan Saldalte or Cam Williams at the end of the day. And that doesn't even, mention, Quincy Porter, the other Ohio State guy who's out in the spring right now.
Exactly. And that's kind of what it feels like, because like when you look at the progress that Jerome Bettis Jr. has made from freshman year to this year, like he's pretty impressive looking out there, not just in a uniform, the kind of catches that he's making, the way he's running routes, the explosiveness that he's got. I think you can throw all those other guys there in that mix as well. And I do wonder about Micah Gilbert, just because of all those other guys that he mentioned. Are they maybe gaining on him or passing him up this spring at this point? But those names right there, when you look at that, what limited, things we've been able to see out there, as well as what we're seeing on the social media, some of the plays these guys are making, like pretty consistently, we're seeing a lot of these guys show up in those plays. So I think I probably would include Gilbert, and then I would also include Quincy Porter. And then that gives you, again, along with Jordan Faison, that gives you 9 guys right there. And so yeah. I think that's probably going to be the core group.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the core group, but I think what's ultimately going to be even harder is something that Notre Dame really hasn't faced, I think, in a long time, and it's almost too much depth or talent at the wide receiver position. It seems like there is an abundance of older guys, younger guys, some transfer guys with a lot of talent. So I'm really excited for this wide receiver room, because I think it's only going to push the unit as a whole. And I think you're going to see the results on the field this season with CJ Carr at quarterback. I just think it's almost going to be like, and I think their mindset is going to be, take your pick almost. You can't guard all of us at once, and we have so much speed and talent on the field at one time. How are you going to keep up with us?
And that's a good point. You led me into this next one, because Mike Denbrock offensive coordinator, of course, was asked, like if there is a different kind of speed that Notre Dame has now, in that wide receiver group to be able to stretch the field offensively.
Yeah, I think you can always be faster, of course, but I do feel like we've upgraded with the speed at a number of the skill positions, and I think you could tell that by practice today. I mean, it's a different looking group, and I think it just makes it more exciting, especially when you got somebody who, whether he should or not, wants to push the ball vertically down the field and be aggressive, right? And it's funny because we brought him football school, so I'm over on the side chuckling to myself, like, Tay-Tay's in the middle of the field running sideline to sideline, picking off everything he's throwing, right? And it's like we're in football school, so we can't have a ball. So we're running 7-on-7, but there's no ball, right? So CJ's like, okay, he takes his footwork. Here's my read. Okay, here's my read. He's been chomping at the bit for like 3 weeks to throw the ball. And I knew exactly what was going to happen today. When the ball came out, that ball was going down the field no matter what. Yeah. It didn't make any difference how deep the safety was or anything else. He was going to launch it. So I got a chuckle out of that on the sideline just to myself because I knew what was coming.
Yeah, and it just feels like, as he was alluding to there, you've got a quarterback who wants to stretch the field. 2, you've got the kind of receivers that they have that I think are going to be, much more adept at being able to stretch the field. And I think that those two things combine, especially when you go back to the offensive line that we were talking about, feels like that is a pretty nice discovery that Notre Dame has stumbled upon and what that portends for the fall.
Yeah, and I think what makes this even more challenging is you have a quarterback who wants to throw the ball downfield. You're going to have wide receivers that have the speed and talent to catch the ball downfield. But are you going to have a head coach that's willing to push the ball downfield?
You think Marcus Freeman's going to get a little more conservative?
Well, I don't want him to create this culture of CJ Carr kind of having the devil sitting on one shoulder and the angel sitting on the other as he's dropping back, and he's like, ooh, I really want to throw this ball deep, but I know that, Marcus Freeman's sitting on this shoulder while the other one, CJ Carr's, like Denbrock was saying, he knew CJ Carr was going to chuck that ball deep, and he, the first chance that he got. And so,
but I mean, these are like discussions we've kind of had at the beginning of the last couple of seasons based on what we've seen.
Yeah, but last year was more reasonable because CJ Carr was so young and inexperienced, and
and there were some turnovers in training camp during the quarterback competition that led to some of that as well. Led to some of that kind of apprehension, I think, from Marcus Freeman on just turning him loose.
But I think if Notre Dame really wants to be an elite offense and, not having Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price back, you're going to have to make more plays, especially explosive plays in the air this season. You're not going to have Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price just ripping off those 50, 60, 70-yard explosive yard touchdowns. You're going to have to create more explosive plays through the air, 20-plus yard type passes. And CJ Carr is really good at those. And so I understand the hesitancy last season. You don't want to get a quarterback on the wrong foot early and kind of get in the wrong mental headspace. But CJ Carr has all the momentum. He's proven all the tools. He's proven that, he's going to work in the film room. He's going to understand defenses. I still trust CJ Carr, even though it's taking a quote-unquote shot. It's a calculated shot. And I think that's how Notre Dame has to view it as well. If we want to be this national contending offense and all that stuff, we kind of have to take the training wheels off CJ Carr. And if that means he makes a mistake, here and there early on, I think that's better than waiting until the end and not allowing Notre Dame to make big plays in those bigger games later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time they've had a returning starting quarterback in 6 years, so, and he's not just any returning quarterback. It's different. You and I have talked about this before, their ability to be able to stretch the field like that because you don't have Love and Price. That's going to really help set up that run game, I think, and it's going to make them much more complicated to have to cover because if you're Wisconsin, it just feels like you're playing a couple safeties deep early on, and you're planning on trying to take that away, and Notre Dame's got to be able to make them pay with that run game if teams are going to play them like that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Kevin Corrigan, Notre Dame men's lacrosse coach, is going to join me. We're going to talk about the game coming up this weekend against number 1 North Carolina. He's also got some thoughts on guys like Dylan Faison, Jordan Faison, and some of those guys who've done a little double duty between football and lacrosse the last couple of years. So we've got that and more. We've got more Notre Dame football talk coming up at the top of the second hour in rapid fire as well. We got a lot of topics in rapid fire. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them today. It's kind of going to be one of those days, I think. But we'll take a timeout right now and back with Kevin Corrigan from the Notre Dame men's lacrosse team. That's coming up on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Sean Steyer's with you on this fine Tuesday. Glad to have you with us. Notre Dame men's lacrosse, number 2 in the nation right now as they roll through another season. And earlier today, I talked with Fighting Irish head coach Kevin Corrigan, previewing this Saturday's big matchup with number 1 North Carolina. Kevin Corrigan is with us from the Notre Dame lacrosse team. How we doing today, Coach?
Doing great, thanks.
Well, it's good to see you. Notre Dame hosts top-ranked North Carolina this Saturday at 5:00 at Arlada Stadium. First of 2 remaining home games for the Fighting Irish as we get into the month of April right now. Coach, like every day I look outside and you had your coat on and your sweatshirt on underneath it. I was just thinking about this as we were getting ready to start. We've got in this area such a wide range of temperatures. Is there a perfect weather for lacrosse, like perfect temperature to play lacrosse in, do you think, when you consider all the energy and everything else that you guys use out there?
Yeah, the perfect weather is probably in Loftus every day at about 67 and partly sunny. But outside of that, you don't get perfect around here very often. We just go for tolerable.
Don't we all know that?
Yeah, no, it is what it is. It's spring, in spring you get a little bit of everything, and sometimes you get a little bit of everything in the same day. So is what it is. Not something we waste too much time worrying about.
No, I mean, you can't. And it's not like baseball. I mean, you're going to go out and regardless of what the temperatures, you're going to play one way or another, right?
Yeah, we're going to play in pretty much all of it. Every now and then we do get chased into Loftus for a game, but usually those are the early season games, not this time of year.
You've been doing this for 38 years now. What keeps you motivated 38 years later, to keep doing this?
Well, I mean, first thing is every year is different. Every team is different. Say it to the team every year. A quarter of the guys left, and a new quarter came in, right? So that's a huge turnover every single year, and it changes all the dynamics. And plus the young guys are growing up, and freshmen are freshmen, but when a freshman's a junior, he's a different guy, right? In so many ways, and so the dynamic of the team is fresh and new every single year. It doesn't. So while there are parts of the job that you might feel like Groundhog Day, the most important part, which is dealing with the guys and trying to gather everybody and all the talents and everything and get them to the best place that this group can be. That's always an interesting and new challenge every single year.
Well, obviously, it wasn't that long ago. It's only been a couple of years since you won the second of 2 straight national championships with last year sitting in between. When you think about that, like, does it almost feel like it's 10 years as opposed to 2, when you think about turnover of team and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it really is, it does feel like it's been a minute, but at the same time, still some guys on this team who were part of those teams, right?
Sure.
And so for them, it's still something they remember, hopefully in a positive way that can help us, get better this year, right? Not in a nostalgic way about pining for the past, but just in a, hey, what can we use from the experiences we've had, good and bad, to make this team the best it can be, because that's the only goal we have.
Does having some of that DNA of the those guys who are still remaining from those teams, like, how important is that now 2 years later, is when you've got an NCAA tournament not that far in the horizon?
You've always got to have guys who have confidence and belief, and when you've got guys who've played in that final game and contributed in that, they're going to have a different level of confidence in what can happen at the end of the year than a young guy who's never been through it before. So, sure, it's always good to have guys on the roster who have that kind of belief.
It took 35 years for you to get that first championship, and then you won 2 in a row. Did did winning those championships, did it change you as a coach?
I don't think so. Honestly, I doubt my guys would say I'm much different, in terms of that. I think, there's great satisfaction in that and everything else. And you feel like, it's something that's shared across so many different people, that you're just, a part of it. And obviously, wonderful experience to be part of. But again, it doesn't change the job this year. It doesn't matter what we did last year. It just matters what are we doing right now, and how can we get better on a daily basis, right? So, that I think is always the focus. I hope I'm a better coach now, but just because if I'm not learning from all the stuff that we're going through year to year, the success and the failures, then there's a real problem, because that's got to be job number one for all of us is to keep learning and stay curious and keep looking for new ways to be better for ourselves and for the team.
I mean, I don't think you last as long as you have if you're not learning from, 1 year to the next, do you?
Yeah, probably not. I don't know. Never thought about that way, but
well, even from a recruiting aspect, how did what you were able to do in those 2 years, how has it impacted the last couple of years when you're out recruiting now?
Yeah, recruiting's not that linear that it's like, oh, you want a championship, hot dog gets easy now. Everybody wants to come to Notre Dame. And but we've had some prolonged success that has put us in, that the kind of conversations with all the best kids on a year-to-year basis. And then obviously, the proof of concept, we before we won a championship, we lost one in overtime, 15, 16 years ago, which is as close as you can conceivably come to winning one. So kids know that if they come here, they're going to compete at that level. They're going to have that opportunity. And so I think that's been a fairly consistent thing now for a lot of years because of fairly consistent success. We've been in the quarterfinals almost every year for the last 20 something years. So, I think that puts you in a position of being able to talk to the best kids every year.
Well, as you said, you've got some guys who were part of that team from a couple of years ago, that second championship, but this year's team, is at least fairly different from a couple of years ago. And you're coming off a win over top-ranked Richmond in your most recent game, and that came right after your first loss of the season, after you had won 6 in a row. So how were you able to bounce back after that first setback, regroup, and then come up with, I guess at least arguably your biggest win of the season in such a short amount of time?
I think it just is the approach that we try to take every week, right? I mean, what did we do? What can we learn from it? And how can we apply that going forward and prepare ourselves for the next one? You can't stop and kind of chalk up wins and losses and talk, and do any of that during the season. First of all, you don't know what a win means until the end of the year when you see how that team did. And is that a great win, a good win, or just an okay win? Every win is a great win, but in terms of where it puts you, what position it puts you in for the rest of the year, you don't know what that means. So you need to be consistent in the approach, right? And our phrase that we use a lot is egoless clarity. Let's whether we won or whether we lost, let's take our ego out of it, and let's see if we can learn from what we did well, what we didn't do well. We're not pointing fingers. We're not assigning blame. We're just recognizing the reality of what happened and how it happened, and how do we use that to get better, right? And so again, that by Monday, you're taking some of the sting off of that, you hope, and looking at it if it was a loss, and you're taking some of the pride and the you're getting puffed up about it if you won, and getting back to, all right, what do we got to do now? What's in front of us, and what's the task at hand?
Well, it's interesting. You say egoless wins. I was looking at some of your, like, the national stat rankings and some of that kind of stuff. As a team, you're in the top 10 in both scoring offense and scoring defense, but you don't have really many guys individually, who are among the nation's elite, I guess. Does that kind of say something to you? Does that kind of go to what you're talking about there?
Well, I mean, listen, some teams have those guys and some teams don't. And some teams, are geared towards certain people scoring more and things of that nature. This team is not. This team is got a lot of different guys that can contribute, and thankfully a lot of different guys who have contributed. And I hope we stay that way. It makes you a little bit harder to play against, and a little bit harder to prepare for. But listen, when we had a couple years ago, when we had Pat Cavanaugh scoring a bunch of points and Jake Taylor scoring a bunch of goals, there's nothing wrong with that either. That was how that team was built, and this team is built a little bit differently. So, again, that's part of us kind of just assessing ourselves on a constant basis about who are we, what do we do, and how do we play when we're at our best. And that's also something you learn as you go through the season. You try to start with some vision of what you think your team is and what it's going to look like, but when the lights come on, everything's a little bit different. And so you got to learn game to game and throughout the season, and you got to evolve so that when you see things that you like or don't like, you're moving either towards them or away from them, in what you do every week. Right. So yeah, it's just it's a process, and that's kind of coach speak. But it's only coach speak because it's the absolute truth.
Well, one guy who does show up in some of the national rankings is your goalie, Thomas Ricciardelli, number 6 in the nation in terms of goals against average. Can you kind of talk to, just the importance of him on this year's team?
Well, I mean, listen, every goal that goes in goes by the goalie, right? And there are different things that happen. Sometimes a goal is the fault of an offensive guy who made a bad turnover and created transition. Sometimes the fault is a defensive guy who made a bad decision at that end. Sometimes a goal is scored because the other team's guy made a great play. All of those things happen in the course of the thing. And the only thing that's consistent in every one of them is for the ball to go in, it has to go by the goalie. And so, having a goalie that's got the right mindset, that's got the mental toughness to play that position and to kind of reset himself after every goal, whether it was his fault, someone else's fault, nobody's fault, great play by the other team, whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is the next shot, right? Because that shot's already in. And so Thomas, I think, has done a great job this year of moving on. And I think he's playing better, frankly, right now than he has all year, which is also good. He's growing and getting more confident, and also our defense, which, listen, while he gets that number assigned to him, that number is our defense's number, not his number. That's the number that we're giving up as a team, and like I said, that there's a lot of different pieces that go into that. So not fouling, not giving up transition, having offensive guys that can play when they get trapped down there and know how to do things. I mean, there's just a lot of parts to it that I think the average person maybe doesn't appreciate and thinks sometimes, oh, the goalie's having a great year, or the goalie's having a bad year based on what that number of goals given up per game is. I think it's a group effort without question. It's a 40, in our case, 53-man group effort, and Thomas is he's doing his part. He's doing his job, which is great, and he's doing it well, and he's getting better at it every week.
Coach, you've had kind of some of these, I guess, higher profile type guys because of the football connection over the last few seasons, between Tyler Buckner and obviously Jordan Faison, and now Jordan's gone, and you've got his brother Dylan in there, and he's
Matty Jeffrey.
Yeah, and Matt Jeffrey as well. Yeah, exactly. When you look at a guy like Dylan Faison specifically, like, this is a guy who's supposed to be in high school right now, and he's an early enrollee. I know he hasn't played a ton for you this year, but how rare is that? Have you had many of these guys,
Never.
do this?
Never. This is the first guy we've ever had come in his senior year of high school, and he wouldn't have done it if it weren't, that he was also a football recruit. But I honestly, he's handled it well in some instances and not well in others. And as you would expect, he's a young guy. He's learning. He's learning at a place where I won't say Notre Dame's unforgiving, but I will say when you don't do things around here or do things poorly, nobody kind of glazes over that and allows you to get away with it. This is a place that believes in growth and accountability. And you only get that by people, staying on top of things. And so I think, I think Dylan's handled it well to date and is growing and learning as we go and getting better every week. And no coincidence, that's coinciding with him playing a bigger and bigger role for us on the field. So, very positive. Everything's trending in the right way right now. But the first time I've been through this with a kid, and it's a lot. It's a lot to take on. Every freshman I think feels like he's drinking through a fire hose. but a kid who comes in mid-year to a spring sport means that he's coming into a team that was already formed in the fall and had 20 something practices in the fall and a couple competitions, and now he's joining in and trying to learn everything that every freshman got 3 months to go through together. Yeah. He's going through it by himself in a sense, right? So I think I give a lot of credit to his teammates who've done a great job of helping him and helping him grow and learn and supporting him along the way when, being tolerant of the things he doesn't know. And I think our coaches have done a great job working with him and bringing him along. So, yeah, from every standpoint, as a student, as a kid, and as a lacrosse player, he's getting better every day right now. And that's great to see.
Well, and again, when you look at that group of guys who we met, both Faisons, Buckner, Jeffrey, football is basically a year-round sport now, and lacrosse is obviously a pretty demanding sport, just in terms of what it takes from a conditioning standpoint and the level of commitment. What does it say about that group of guys that they're able to pull off playing both of those sports at this level?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It really is. I mean, the thing is, the stick skills are something that it's hard to put your stick down for 7 months and then pick it up and play at this level, right? But those guys don't have much choice. They're not spending a lot of time working on their stick skills during football season, certainly. Maybe a little bit during the summer when they're doing a lot of football work, but have a little more time. But it's just, it's amazing that they're able to do it. It speaks to them in terms of the ability that they have. It speaks to them in terms of the mindset that they have to be able to do that. The toughness, the mental toughness to go through a year where you really don't have a break. You're basically preparing for a season at every point. Your body is, we try to be cognizant of that and give them some time and give them some break. At the same time, the conditioning for football and lacrosse are completely different. And so, we can only give them so much time because they've got to get themselves in a position of being able to compete on our field. So I think it's an amazing accomplishment, how not just that they've done it, but how well they've done it and continue to do it. And super appreciative of the fact that Coach Freeman and their staff and our strength and conditioning staff on both sides, all very understanding of the demands and helping it happen in the way that it needs to happen, which is great, because I think the one thing that you can say is everybody in that funnel there has the best interest of the kid first, not the best interest of themselves. And that is the only thing, that's the only way it can really work. And so it's great to see that we've been able to do that.
Well, like we said, you beat the number one team in the nation, most recently Richmond, and your reward for that is now, so you knocked them out of number one. So now you get the new number one coming in back-to-back, North Carolina, coming up at home again this weekend at 5:00. It's the first of 3 remaining regular season games for you, and then you've got ACC tournament after that. So as you start with this game and you kind of ramp up toward the NCAA tournament here in about what, a month and a half or so, what are you kind of looking for as you come down the stretch of this season?
Yeah, again, I'm going to go back to it's Tuesday and we've got Tuesday's work to do. I'm not worried about the rest of the season. That's going to come hell or high water. But if I start thinking about that, I'm not going to be thinking about what we're doing at 4:00 today, which is the most important thing.
All right, so you can check out Kevin Corrigan's squad this Saturday at 5:00 against number 1 North Carolina at Arlotta Stadium. It's again the first of 2 remaining home games. Admission to the game is free, and like you said, whether or not we have good weather, bad weather, whatever kind of weather this weekend, you guys will be playing. So we will look forward to seeing you guys out there. Thanks for doing this, Coach.
Yeah, supposed to be a nice day. Come on out.
All right.
It should be a great day, and I know it's going to be 2 really good teams that you'll enjoy the game.
Springtime in South Bend. Kevin Corrigan, longtime coach of the Notre Dame men's lacrosse team. Coach, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, that's Kevin Corrigan, and it is Military Appreciation Day at that game. Number 1 North Carolina, number 2 Notre Dame this Saturday, 5:00 at Arlotta. So get on out there and cheer on the Irish as the season begins to wind down. Take a timeout, and then hour number 2, it's rapid fire. We've got Notre Dame football, some Notre Dame basketball, and more coming up in the second hour of the show. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It looks like Jesse has gone into almost witness protection mode there, where he is today. He was like half lit with the sun coming through the window, it looks like, in the shade of the background as we roll into the second hour of the show today. Can you see, or do you have to squint for all that sun coming in that window?
About half and half. I think I found a shade spot here. So
all right. We will see how it goes. We'll see how many questions we get to in rapid fire in the second hour today. There you go. That looks a little bit better. ESPN's Peter Schrager just did his first round mock NFL draft based on the latest intel that he's hearing. He has Jeremiah Love going at number 4 overall to the Tennessee Titans. So, from a purely selfish standpoint, if Love can't fall number 12 to Dallas, is this the perfect spot for him at number 4 to Tennessee?
Yeah, I do like this spot of him going to Tennessee. I think that Tennessee has a lot of young tools around them. And I also like that they're bringing in, obviously with Cam Ward, I think that they've spent some capital along the offensive line as well. And so, most selfishly, the reason why I want Jeremiah Love to end up in Tennessee is so I can get one of those cool throwback Jeremiah Love Tennessee Titans, those powder blue.
They're going with the new uniforms this year.
The new uniforms. But most importantly, outside of that, I just think that, the Titans getting Brian Dable to come on, I think that was huge for them. And I think that, Dable is largely credited for developing someone like Josh Allen. And so, I think Dable with Cam Ward and potentially Jeremiah Love could really do a lot of damage, with that offense in the coming season. So I definitely like it better than the Raiders, definitely like it better than the Jets, and definitely like it better than the Cardinals. So at least the Titans, it's just the Titans. I have no ill will against the Titans. And
exactly.
Again, I feel like
Titans. They're not going to harm us over there.
No, and I like Dable, and again, I think that he could build something pretty solid there with Cam Ward and Jeremiah Love on offense.
Yeah, and the Giants have the number 5 pick. Washington has the number 7 pick. So again, like Jesse and I look at this from a purely selfish. Those two teams are in the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't want him I don't want him going to either of those teams. I don't want him in the division and have to mess with that every year. Do you think, so like from that aspect, and I think it would be a good fit, between Dable, Cam Ward. Irish Eyes 77 is asking if Tennessee has a good offensive line. I mean, I think they've got a good enough offensive line. It can still, there's still room for improvement there. But, look at the Giants as an example. If Love is there at number 5, do you think the Giants should draft him, or should they go with an offensive lineman instead? Because to me, that seems to be the more pressing need for them when you look at the New York Giants at number 5.
Yeah, I think that the Giants spent much of their offensive capital last season with drafting Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo as high as they did in the draft. I think that they have needs along the offensive line as well as the defensive front as well. I think I saw something today that they're going to let Dexter Lawrence go. Lining up in the nose tackle position, he's got the most pressures on quarterbacks, from that position. So not too sure what the Giants are thinking with that one. Maybe they're trying to get under the salary cap
I think that's part him. I don't think that Dexter Lawrence is completely buying into what John Harbaugh is selling right now. Like, it sounds
very interesting.
Yeah, a clash of cultures, basically, I think might be the best way to put it.
So I just think that, it's so hard, though, because how do you not take the shiny, flashy, best player in the draft, and if he keeps falling all the way down to number 5, it's like, is it worth it just to roll the dice and take a generational player rather than taking an offensive lineman that might be, better suited for what you have going on right now? It's hard for me to put my bias aside because I'd hate to see Jeremiah Love in a Giants uniform, but I just also don't think it makes sense for them. I think that there are Just like everyone else in the top 5, they could use Jeremiah Love, but I think that there's more practical needs for those teams than a super talented running back.
Well, and that's, I just wonder. I wonder how far he would fall, because Tennessee has become like the hot pick for him at number 4 right now. And again, I think, like when you look at what the Giants have, Jeremiah Love would definitely be an upgrade over Scadaboo, and Scadaboo was injured last year, his rookie year to begin with. Do you think he would fall past Washington at number 7? Because like Irish Chi-Town is saying, Kansas City, I mean, that was like the early trendy pick at number 9, but I just don't see him falling that far. Can you see him falling as far as number 9?
I see a team trading up to the top 6 to get him rather than him falling all the way down to 8, 9, or 10.
Okay.
I think that if Jeremiah Love is still there after Tennessee, I think the phones are going to be off the hook about potential trade ups at that point.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants him to fall all the way down to Kansas City. And so I still think that the absolute, basement for Jeremiah Love is the Saints, I believe at pick number 8. And I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona takes him, but I don't think they're going to. I think right now it's like between Tennessee and that Saints pick at number 8, but I just don't see him getting past really the 5. I think you're going to see a team trade up if it gets to that point.
Yeah, and I think that would be really enticing for the Giants, as they, continue to try to retool if someone did want to trade with them at number 5 to potentially grab him. And again, I think that as enticing as Love would be for the Giants at number 5, if he did get past them, their quarterbacks were sacked 48 times last year. Jackson Dart, a mobile quarterback, was sacked 35 of those times in just 14 games last year. That was the most of any team in the NFC East. So it just feels like they need to focus on that offensive line and retool that offensive line.
What I'm most curious about is if Harbaugh sat him down and said, listen, you're not doing any more of that running around anymore. Like we can't. Or if he's allowing it to be, like Lamar Jackson, we want that to be a part of your game. But if it's the latter and it's, hey, we don't mind the running, just be smarter about it, you still need an offensive line to protect him like you're talking about. And you still, if you're going to have a guy that's a quarterback that's going to run around, you can't have him take the unnecessary shots because you have a bad offensive line. So I think the Giants have a lot to figure out. If I think, Harbaugh is kind of true to his philosophy, I think they'll get stronger in the trenches. They just kind of have to. Yeah. And that's the unfortunate
He's
part.
literally got Jim Harbaugh DNA. And
right.
They went with Alt a couple years ago with Harbaugh's first round pick. So,
and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Is as hard as it is, that's you can still get a generational player like Alt. You can still get the cream of the crop at the offensive line position. And that's what's so hard. And I think that's where, I make fun of a lot of these NFL teams, but like, I know it's not super sexy, but it is the safest thing you can do is take an offensive lineman in the top 10. If you're just unsure, if you need to, reestablish, especially for a new head coach, it's just the safest pick you can do is take the highly rated offensive lineman.
I mean, I know that the Bengals got to the Super Bowl with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow when they made the decision to go with Chase over an offensive lineman. Do you think if they had it to do over again, they would have gone with an offensive lineman instead of Chase in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the injuries that Joe has had,
right.
It's not like it's just been the failure, the defensive side of the ball. It's been Joe getting hurt on top of that consistently.
Yeah. By the way, Reggie Bush, drafted number 2 overall 20 years ago, 2006, the last running back that was drafted in the top 10 to win a Super Bowl with the team that drafted him. You kind of forget that Reggie Bush is a Super Bowl champion, like when you consider kind of how his career ended up playing out. Kind of crazy, though. The last running back drafted in the top 10 to win a Super Bowl. Fill in the blank. Peter Schrager has 4 Ohio State players going in the top 12, including safety Caleb Downs to Dallas at number 12. That would be blank.
That would be best case scenario. When I think of, the Dallas Cowboys at the number 12 pick, I'm looking at defense, unless somehow, some way Jeremiah Love is there. And even then, I might have to still consider going defense over someone like Jeremiah Love. But the way I've boiled this down is if the Cowboys can sneak away with either of the Ohio State guys on defense between Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, I will call that a major success with the 12th overall pick. I don't think Arvell Reese will get there. I think he's going to be more of a top 5 kind of pick.
He's got him going number 3 to Arizona.
And, Carnell Tate, Dallas doesn't need a wide receiver. They've got CeeDee Lamb. They just franchised George Pickens. They're going to go defense, and I want one of those Ohio State boys. I want Sonny Styles. I want Caleb Downs. I don't care if it's which one it is, but those are the two where I'm like, if they can figure out a way to get like when everyone was talking about Caleb Downs, I think he had a knee or something. I was like, oh man, rats. That's too bad. I'd hate to see him fall down a couple more, draft picks. So I think Dallas is definitely going to go either. I mean, shoot, they could take their pick. They need a safety. They need a linebacker. They need an edge rusher. It'll definitely be defense, but I want, as much as I hate Ohio State, I want some of those Ohio State guys. And it's crazy. I still think this shows, and I think Vince and I talked about this a while ago on one of the Fridays that you weren't here. Ohio State was loaded, and this shows it. And I think you could make the case that I know Julian Sayin was a first-time starting quarterback, but he really underachieved for a roster that was uber talented at the end of the day. And I'll even go out to say, if CJ Carr was on Ohio State, I think they go further than what they did this past season. I think Julian Sayin was truly their limiting factor this past season, because you look around.
There's a lot of love for him, but you're looking at potentially 4 guys going in the top 12, and you still have Jeremiah Smith, who's not even included in that, and all the other guys. Like you can argue that they underachieved even by getting to the playoffs as much as anyone this year.
Well, and they looked bad in the Big Ten championship, and they looked bad in the first round against Miami, and it's because the offense just couldn't move the ball. And so, as much as Sayin got hyped up, I think there are better returning quarterbacks and quarterbacks that were in similar situations last season that outperformed Sayin. And I think it shows when you see how much of this Ohio State talent is going to be drafted in a month.
It's nuts. So this is Schrager's mock draft. And again, this is based on intel that he's got by talking to people around the league. So Schrager has Arvell Reese from Ohio State going 3rd overall to Arizona. Then he's got Sonny Styles, the linebacker, going to Washington at number 7, Carnell Tate to Miami at number 11, and then Caleb Downs to Dallas at number 12. He's projecting 4 Ohio State players to go in the top 12. So, scale of 1 to 10, what chances do you give Notre Dame to have even 3 top 12 picks within the next 5 years?
I give that a 10 out of 10.
Really?
So are we saying in one draft class?
In one draft,
okay.
Yeah. We're not talking about spread out. I think spread out, I would go 10 out of 10. But I'm talking about one draft, Notre Dame's chances to have 3 top 12 picks in the next 5 years.
I wish. So next year you could make the case that CJ Carr and
number 1.
And Leonard Moore would be 2 top 10 picks. I don't know who else on the roster could also make that kind of jump, and also is in the eligibility requirements, right? Like Drake Bowen isn't going that high. None of the linebackers are going that high. You would have to have.
Could have Don Schuler play himself into Downs territory?
I think
it's an outside chance, but
he's the guy that I was going to say gives you the best chance, but I still think he's got a lot to go, and I still think he's a little undersized for the safety position. You know what I mean? I think he's more of like a second round safety. I don't know that he would.
I agree with that. Right now, I think he is.
Yeah, it would take a lot to climb all. I mean, look at the season Xavier Watts had, and he didn't even climb that high.
That Xavier Watts had. Yeah.
Right. And he didn't even climb, that far into the. I think what you would need is one of the defensive ends would just have to go absolutely bananas this season.
That's what I tend to think.
I think Boubacar Traore, because Boubacar Traore is up there on a lot of people's lists, and he would have to have 10 plus sacks this season in order to get to that. Would be their next best chance, is if someone like Boubacar Traore really lit up the world, or maybe like Francis Brouillou had an amazing, becomes like the most dominant defensive tackle in the whole country. That's really where I'm seeing it, because I don't think any of the offensive linemen are quite ready. They're not going to have a tight end ready. I don't think they're going to have a wide receiver ready.
I mean, if Charles Jagasaw had stayed healthy, we would be talking about him in
that would be it. Those would be the three.
Yeah, exactly. And they would be, I wouldn't say locks, but they'd be like at least someplace in the first round. You'd be talking that they would all go someplace in the first round.
So going back to the original question, 3 guys in the same draft class going in the top 12, I'd have to give it a solid 6 out of 10. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance, but it's not much higher. So I'm in like the 60 to 70% range.
That's kind of where I am. I'm in that 6.5, 7. That would be in the next 5 years. I mean, we do like who exactly they're going to be. We don't know. But when you look at the continued stream of talent, we were just talking in the first hour about all this wide receiver talent that they've got. And, and then you talk about the quarterbacks that they're bringing in, the defensive, like guys in the secondary, and then some of these ends, Patrick in the YouTube chat is saying Tay, Boubacar, and Young. Like Young is a guy who we're still waiting for to really fully, realize that talent. You forget about Tay Johnson, but he would be draft eligible next year because he has a redshirt year. Like, could he play himself into that range? I don't think Bryce Young will. I think Boubacar, he would really have to explode, to a degree that we haven't seen yet. Like, there is so much talent there, but we thought we were going to see, more out of him. Not that he's underachieved, I don't think by any means, but we thought we were going to see more last year. Tay Johnson and Boubacar Traore could find themselves in that range, though.
Yeah, I mean, if CJ Carr and Riley Leonard are locks, I think that the third person would come down to a pool of 3 players, and that's Tay Johnson, Adon Schuler, and Boubacar Traore. Those are the 3 guys I think would have the most potential to play themselves into, a top 10 pick. And even then, I think it would be a pretty hard feat.
So, again, to reiterate, the question that I asked, scale of 1 to 10, the chances Notre Dame has 3 top 12 picks in the same draft in the next 5 years. You and I are both around the 6-7 range in that department. Don't even get me, I'm not going to do it. But to your point, like how you read this question initially, just 3 top 12 picks overall, like anywhere, like any Notre Dame guys going in the top.
I'll take that 10 out of 10.
5 years. I think that's 10 out of 10. We're going to see a slew of Notre Dame guys beginning to go like high in the draft because of the kind of guys, because of the quality guys that they've got and the way they've been able to develop them so far. And to answer this question, the NFL draft is the same weekend as the Blue Gold game. So the Blue Gold game is the 25th, which means the NFL draft is the first round is the night of Thursday, the 23rd, second round and third round on the 24th, and then it'll conclude the day of the Blue Gold game. So Blue Gold and NFL draft all at the same time. Never really advantageous because of all the things that get condensed into that small window. But that's when it'll be. April 23rd is round 1 of the NFL draft. Speaking of drafts, Kassan Prosper declared for the WNBA draft last night. We'll take a time out. When we come back, we will continue rapid fire with that discussion, as well as some way too early Notre Dame women's basketball in the rankings and some other topics coming up when rapid fire continues on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid Fire continues. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Stiers along with Jesse Stiers. Plenty more topics to get into as we continue. Kassan Prosper announced last night that rather than use her final year of college eligibility at Notre Dame, she has entered her name in the WNBA draft pool. What do you think of the decision by Cass, Jesse? Mute.
Selfishly, I wanted her to come back for another season because I think there's a lot on the table next season with Hannah Hidalgo returning for her, final season at Notre Dame. But then when I start thinking about it in terms of what's best for Cass Prosper, I don't know that her stock is going to be any higher than this. And I think that any questions that might be out there, I think that she is more than willing to kind of prove it through her, draft workouts and that sort of thing. I think she's got the size. I think she's got the athleticism. She's got the frame to play in the WNBA. I still think that there are some skills that need refined. I think she could polish herself as a better shooter, mid-range shooter. I don't see her as someone who needs to take threes. I think she just needs to focus on being a mid-range shooter. I think she needs to finish better around the hoop. But I have been impressed with her ball handling skills as probably a quote-unquote big, not quite a center, but a power forward. She has really good ball handling. I just want to see her basically have better touch around the hoop, finishing her layups and also being more consistent with her jumpers. But she's got the skill set. And again, coming off of Notre Dame's finish to the end of the season, her being the ACC, most improved player, I just don't know how much more she can improve her stock right now. I guess
I'm surprised to hear you say that because I think she made great progress from last year to this year. And I mean, like it showed in the fact that she was named the ACC's
I guess put it like this. I think her stock could go up, but I think it could go down more than it could go up in a last season.
Yeah, and the thing with her, and like Patrick is saying, not sure what she was getting in NIL or, if she's
they have the new CBA.
Yeah, they do have the new CBA. He says WNBA doesn't pay much. It's going to pay a lot more this year because of the new CBA. But the question, I'm not expecting her to be a first-round pick. And even with the expansion of the WNBA, there's still only, 15 teams, 16 teams now? Now, the one aspect of this is one of those expansion teams is Toronto, and she's from Montreal. And I think that, the biggest thing for her, she pretty much had her mind set. She kind of said, this was her fourth year. So she's been here for 4 years now at Notre Dame. Now, really 3.5 because she came in and enrolled early but still, yes, she does have her degree. She had set her mind in the offseason on, I'm going to finally show what I'm fully capable of, and I'm going to be a WNBA basketball player, and that was her whole mindset throughout the season. She just announced her decision. She had pretty much made up her mind that as long as she showed, that she could make that kind of leap in her play, that she was going to declare for the WNBA. This was never really a question to her, So I agree. There are still parts of her game where she can continue to improve, finishing at the basket as a 3-point shooter that, that can still continue to improve. But where Notre Dame, I think, is going to miss her as much as anything is the defensive versatility that she has, and the fact that she can basically play any position and what she gives them with all that length out there, on the perimeter as a perimeter defender, all those different things are where I think her presence is going to be missed the most as far as Notre Dame goes. But I'm really curious because of the Canada connection. I mean, she's an Olympian. She's a Canadian Olympian. I'm really curious to see if she's sitting there in the middle of the second round, does Toronto take Kassan Prosper with that pick in the middle of the second round? Like, does she become a second round pick and end up, because like they just had the expansion draft last week. Does she, like, that would be a really big marketing piece for Canada as an expansion, for Toronto as an expansion team to have a player like Cass Prosper.
It would. I don't know if you know this, but Cleveland also has an expansion team. I wouldn't mind seeing my my Clevelanders go ahead and draft Cass Prosper as well, because then I could get a Cass Prosper WNBA jersey, and it bodes well for both sides. I'm supporting the expansion team. I'm supporting Cass Prosper and Notre Dame. But all jokes aside, back to your original point, I do think that her, ending up in Toronto and having that familiarity and probably people up there that are familiar with her game as well, right? And so I think it's going to go both ways. But like you said, Cass Prosper, my eyes, not a first-round talent. Definitely someone who's probably going to get picked up in the second round. But I think if you're a team, kind of on the fence about drafting Cass, I think the number one thing that she has working for her is she's like Play-Doh. She is so raw still, in my opinion, and so easily moldable that I don't know if there's a true position that defines her. I think that she can be almost anything you need her to be on a team, and she can work towards it and become good at it. Like, that's the type of player that Cass is. I don't know that she's necessarily elite at something right now, but I think she could fit a role on a team, and I think and she has shown that she can fit a role and she can also excel at that role given time to kind of adapt and evolve a little bit.
I agree with that because she is so versatile. There's a lot that she can bring a team. I'm concerned because she is not likely going to be a first round pick, and even late first round picks in the WNBA, because of the small amount of teams that they have. Like, there's no guarantee that you're going to, like, stay on a roster. But the Toronto thing, I think, is like the one that provides, like the most possibilities, I think, because she is, essentially a hometown player and all that different kind of stuff. Chi-Town asked if she would make more staying at Notre Dame from NIL than the WNBA. I don't know, but this is not about money for her. This is, she's done with school, and it has nothing to do with Notre Dame specifically. Like, she's been at Notre Dame for 4 years, and she's done with school and wants to move on. She wants to be a WNBA player. And like I said, she dedicated and devoted her entire offseason to that. She made great strides in her play. I think we can all see that there's, a little bit more there for her, but best of luck. And, hopefully it works out, because there is some risk based on the fact that she's not a lock to be a first round pick.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. Is the last thing I want to see is Cass go undrafted with a year of eligibility remaining.
Exactly. That would not. Now, I mean, she can go overseas and play and do a lot of things over there, but she obviously wants to be a WNBA player. Like, she literally has said that, from step one. Terry asked, buy or sell, Hannah Hidalgo achieves the elusive quadruple double. I mean, based on the fact that she flirted with it in the elite, or in the Sweet 16 to get to the Elite 8, I would buy it. I'd give her at least a 6 out of 10, better than 50-50 chance that it happens.
Yeah, I would too, especially considering how close she was this season, and knowing, kind of like you've mentioned before, some of those early opponents, non-conference teams at the beginning of the season. That's our best chance, I think, the beginning of the season, and then obviously, like, when games get uber competitive in the ACC tournament, and then potentially the NCAA tournament as well.
Speaking of Notre Dame women's basketball, they're number 21 in ESPN's way too early rankings for next season. Too high, too low, or just right?
I think this is actually a little bit too low. If you think about this, let's just call it 20. 20 divided by 4, like we're doing like a bracket right now. That would put Notre Dame at a 5 seed. They came in at a 6 seed this last tournament. I think that they proved that they probably deserve to be in that 4 or 3 range. They got down to the Elite Eight, and the main, I mean, not the main reason, the reason why they got to the Elite Eight is returning next year. I believe that same article kind of mentions, there's a lot of players leaving and that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, but that happened last year. They are better off this offseason than they were last offseason.
Right.
They just went to an Elite Eight. And so I don't know how you can project them to be any worse than what they were this last season, because they have a super talented incoming class with the freshmen. Getting KK Bransford back is huge. And I think Neil Ivey is going to make some noise in the transfer portal as well to really kind of bring the whole team together. So yeah. I think they're underseeded. I would put them probably in the more top 15 range myself.
I completely agree. And I mean, the first line of what they said on this ESPN Way Too Early ranking, so much of this ranking is based on the talent of Hannah Hidalgo. Well, if that's the case, and you've got this class of 4 and 5 stars coming in next year, and they are going to hit the portal, and you look at the fact, it's really just like last year when I said at the beginning of the year, like, you've got the 2-time defending ACC Player of the Year, who is also the ACC's Defensive Player of the Year 3 times in a row now. And I won't say she's a lock, but she's going to be the front runner for both of those awards going into her final season at Notre Dame next year. And like what she already led them to this year, I said at the beginning of the year that Notre Dame would be an NCAA tournament team, and they would be competitive in the ACC because of the fact that they have Hannah Hidalgo. Now you're adding more talent around her next year. So, like, they were in the top 8 at the end of this year. So now you've got them number 21 going into next year. That math just doesn't math. So I think that it is definitely too low. And at the very minimum, they need to that they should be considered a top 15 team going in.
Do you think that Neil needs to kind of walk down the hallway and knock on Marcus Freeman's door, and they have a little bit of this leave no doubt chat?
And it might have to. I mean, there are definitely questions because you don't know exactly what the roster is going to look like.
Well, you just don't know what you're going to get out of the transfer portal. Yeah. That's the biggest thing.
But I also think that based on what they just did, any player who's in the transfer portal can look and go, I've got a chance of, at a very minimum, going to a Final Four if I'm playing with Hannah Hidalgo next year.
Yeah, and it's obviously Notre Dame isn't going to strap you up with the most amount of cash in the country, but what are you trying to accomplish? Is your end goal to make a little bit of money, competitively against maybe where you would elsewhere? And also, like, just playing along with Hannah Hidalgo is going to elevate your game tremendously because that much more pressure is taken off you. You can just kind of relax almost. It's like playing in a professional style offense because there's going to be someone, like a Brianna Stewart, a Caitlin Clark. Like, that's what Hannah Hidalgo is to this Notre Dame offense. She takes the attention away. So the rest of, that's why Cass Prosper was so good this year. That's why KK Bransford was so good this year, is because of, the reciprocal effect of playing around Hannah Hidalgo. And so if I'm a recruit and I'm like, hey, I can play with Hannah, my game is going to get better. I'm probably going to improve my draft stock. I'm going to get some NIL money. Oh, and we can make a run towards a national championship. I just don't see how all those things aren't enticing as a full package.
Yep. I completely agree. And I think that they're going to, attract the proper kind of talent, and it's going to pay off for them big time next year. And as someone said, you got Leah Macy, who's going to be added to the mix next year as well. After, she even though she sat out with the injury, she was able to practice with the team and, quite a bit and, familiar with the system and all that kind of stuff already, and a hard worker and a great attitude that she's got as well. As Irish I said, heard they've got a 5-star player visiting soon. They do. Kalina Smith. She's a 5-star point guard from California. And, she is, at least from the offensive end, from what I've seen, very much Hidalgo-like. So that's pretty exciting. And she's part of the 2027 class. Bitten by the party animal in the YouTube chat says, I feel like there should be a third Steyer's option for us to choose from. I don't know about that. Sounds like the NCAA tournament's going to expand to 76 teams next year. The plan that's been reported is an expansion of what is now the first 4 that would go to 12 games and 24 teams playing on those first 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday. They would continue to play games in Dayton, and they would add another city as well. This is pretty polarizing, it feels like. Are you in or out on expanding the NCAA tournament to 76 teams?
Yeah, I'm actually out on this. I was out on them doing the first 4 or whatever. This just smells like conference championships to me. More games equals more money, more TV contracts, all of that stuff. It really feels like they're trying to milk this thing. The only way that I would like to see this expansion is if we do the mid-major, like we involve more of kind of the mid-major teams. We're not just giving more auto bids to the SECs and the Big Tens of the world. And also, what I don't want this to turn into is the mid-majors playing in a buy-in round just to get into the 16 seed. I think it was already hard enough to win your conference championship. I don't think that you should have to win another game to potentially, get that official invite to the round of 64. So, am I really going to be mad if they add more games? No, but I just don't want them to do it with the intent of kind of screwing some of those smaller teams that have to use the auto bid to get in.
I'm just surprised at the amount of people who I saw saying, this is the worst idea ever. Like, really? This is the worst idea ever? A little bit more basketball to begin March Madness. Like we were talking earlier about Thursday and Friday, the first 2, full days of the tournament are the 2 best days possibly of the sporting year, and I'm in the minority. I don't mind this at all because, like way back when this tournament first started, they only had 4 teams, kind of like the college football playoff. Like they only had 4, and then they've expanded from there. It was only the mid 80s when they actually went to 64, like early 80s, they weren't even playing 64. I've always said, like Chi-Town is saying, if play-ins for seeds 13 through 16, but no more 11 and 10. I've said before, and I don't know that they're exactly going to do this, just make all the double-digit seeds, like double those up and make all those play-in games, so seeds 10 through 16, make all those play-in games. I don't know exactly where they're going to be, but I kind of, they definitely want to get more Power 4 teams in because you do still have the weight being thrown around by the Power 4 threatening to pull away and do their own thing. And so they want more in. So that's, going to be kind of the deal with the devil that you're going to have to, like deal with. But at the same time, I would like to see, like, if you're going to expand those first 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, I'd like to see more Power 4 versus non-Power 4, matchups in those rounds, so it's not just a bunch of Power 4 team, extra Power 4 teams getting in. And you're also not, penalizing those smaller schools in the meantime that end up being, like the HBCUs and stuff like that end up being the 15 and 16 seeds. Irish Ice says, expand the NIT. I mean, look, let's be honest. I don't even, you barely even realize the NIT is going on until the final 4 of the NIT, the last 4 come around. They played the championship game of the NIT Sunday night. I didn't even realize it until I saw someone post the score afterwards. Like, that is the most forgotten, basketball that's even going on. So, like, expanding the NIT, forget that. Like, expand the NCAA tournament. I want more meaningful basketball.
Yeah, I haven't watched a singular NIT game, so I don't think I can get behind that.
Concur. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. I do want to ask you this. Fill in the blank. You want to attend the Masters, which starts this week, because of blank.
It's funny you asked me this.
This doesn't have to be a deep thought, Mr. Deep sigh.
I want to go. It's going to sound cliche, but I want to go for the tradition. I want to go for it's like the Rose Bowl, like you go for the tradition, you go for the parade, you go for the experience. It's one of those things where it's like you're told all the time about how beautiful the Rose Bowl is and the experience, and even if it's teams that you're not, particularly rooting for, all those things. I think that's what the Masters would be to me. It'd be a beautiful weekend. The opportunity to be a part of that experience at Augusta, one of the most beautiful golf courses in the world. And then, of course, the opportunity to be around and see some of the best golfers in the world. It's really interesting that you bring this question up because I've never been to like a golfing event before. I've gone to hockey, I've gone to basketball, baseball, football, even like professional soccer games. I've never been to any sort of professional golf event. And it is on my bucket list, but I don't think I could just start with something like the Masters because then it's like, well,
That's
is
true.
anything else going to compare?
Honestly, I put this question on here because the reason I want to go is just to sample everything on that menu. That's like $1.50.
You want that pimento cheese
I do.
sandwich?
I want the pimento cheese sandwich from the Masters. I want that pecan ice cream sandwich from the Masters. Like everything $4 or less. I want to sample everything on the Masters menu. That's why I want to go. It is just, when I see that, it's like, how can you resist a $1.50 pimento cheese sandwich? That sounds so delicious.
I'm surprised they don't have to limit people, like what's stopping someone from just getting a 9-pack for the day and eating one every other hole?
Now, I did see someone kind of spoil it because like they opened it up and it didn't look like that they necessarily pile on the pimento cheese, on those sandwiches. But at the same time, it's like the idea behind the whole thing that you can go to the Masters and get a sandwich for $1.50 and a barbecue sandwich for like $3, Yes, sign me up.
Cheap food and sports. That's all the man needs.
That's exactly right. We're not hard to please. Jesse is off to Hawaii for the next few days. So safe travels to you. We'll look forward to seeing you come back suntan. We're actually not gonna we're gonna be off for a few days because between Jesse, Vince's spring break, and I've got some things going on as well. So we'll be out for a little while, but we'll talk to you next week. So have a great week. We've actually got South Bend Cubs baseball coming up next after Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.